Welcome back to our coverage of the 2016 Peter Bacani Vancouver Fencing World Cup on Via Sport. We're just getting ready here for our third place match, which will feature the Estonians and the Ukrainians. I'm your host, Chris Brentlinger-Grant, joined in the studio as I have been for the past couple of hours with fencing instructor Matt Clark. Now, you can see shots here of our athletes walking out. Matt, while these countries won't be competing for a championship here today, talk a little bit about the importance of being able to finish strong when you're competing in a tournament like this.
Oh, this is very important because even though you're not fencing for a gold medal, you still are fencing for a medal. And of course, when you're this close to the Olympics, you want to have your points. Now, what people might not realize that when the season is over and the Olympics happen, your points don't just go away. You keep your points. So it's really important for teams and athletes to keep those points and maintain a high level. So even if they don't quite qualify, they will potentially qualify for the future Olympics. So I think this is just as important to stay strong than it is to just kind of throw in the towel because they're not going to get a gold medal.
And how about once you know you're not going to win a championship, the importance of staying strong based on the fact that there is no, as you might see in other sports, there is no tie for 12th, for example, with people who finished 12th to 25th. Everybody receives incrementally more points. We saw other things going on in the piece during the semifinals. Those were battles that were sorting out, say, 14th from 15th place, 16th from 17th. And over the course of a season, a 17th as opposed to a 12th place finish could really mean a couple points, and in the long run it could cost you being able to go to a couple more tournaments or being more successful.
That's exactly right? So every athlete is going to push as hard as they can and earn a spot. And hopefully it affects them. If they don't go to this Olympics, it'll hopefully help them to go to future Olympics. And of course, you have your country's pride on you, right? And so when you look at the standings, you never want to be that person at the bottom of the barrel. You want to be that person that's as high as possible. And especially for countries like the Ukraine and Estonia, who have great fencing reputations, you want to finish as high as possible.
Certainly neither of these teams are at the bottom of the barrel. Both of them lost semi-heartbreaking fashion. At least I know we were keeping an eye out all the time on the green piece here with the Ukraine when they were involved against Kazakhstan. Do you think that the demoralizing loss there could play a factor in this? Or, the Ukraine is the #2 fencing nation in the world. I don't think that they'll be that demoralized. And I think they'll be able to come out here strong, don't you?
I don't think they're going to be demoralized at all. I think they're almost, I wouldn't say they're used to the situation. I mean, it's a very common place, right? I mean, a third place finish, a fourth place finish, that is by no means a bad place to be. So I think they're going to fence their butts off, and we're going to see some good fencing.
I think also in the grand scheme of things, you think we started today with 32 teams. Finishing third or fourth, it is an accomplishment, but for those elite programs like a Ukraine, like even in Estonia, or the teams that we'll see later in the finals in a couple of hours, certainly something to hang your hat on. Being able to get more points and moving forward, especially towards the Olympics.
That's right. Seems that both these teams are somewhat playing it safe, but they are being tactful and very mindful. A lot of playing with the blade. Oh. Unfortunately, Ukraine just went right over the shoulder there, and I know that feeling all too well. He's a tall fencer. He didn't push the tip down quite enough, and he paid the price for it.
Good job by Prince there, being able to stand in while that attack was coming, not backing up too far, and he was able to just get it on the outside.
Exactly, and of course, as it went over his shoulder and he stepped in, he just closed the boundary, and Prince had all the time in the world to kind of finish it off. Oh. The reel seems to be having some technical difficulties.
Stoppage here. We haven't seen that all weekend.
No.
Usually the elasticity of the reel is pretty dependable, but
yes,
in a high-stakes situation.
And again, this is one of those things where, obviously he noticed before the ref did, so he didn't want him to get caught up, and, he could have scored maybe a cheap point, but no one wants to earn points that way, right? And that's what's kind of great about this is they're all going to do their best and win as ethically as possible.
Nikishin from the Ukraine trying to keep this one close after about a full minute of them trying to figure out who the other was. We see that quite often, more in the individual than in the team, but here Prince got Estonia up to a 2-0 lead here halfway through the first.
All right, as we've seen before, these have been some low-scoring games, but Estonia's taking a small lead, and I think now they're gonna keep playing that game, but they're not gonna take as big a risk just so they can maintain that lead just for now. As you can see, that distance is so close, but they're both ready to get out of there.
Both playing on basically on the corner of the piece on which they stand, both on the right-hand side, both right-handed fencers. I haven't seen that really, it's hardly any distance as all as you were talking about, but just right towards the end, and Prince is able to just barely get there again for a 3-0 lead. He's opened it up a little bit with just under a minute to go in the first.
You know, if you fence straight at each other, there's all these different angles that can be played, but when you fence like what they were doing it with the angles, they both have the same, they're both parallel, and they're both right-handed, so they both have the same advantage and disadvantage when they fence like that. So, oh, and they want to take a break, switch out the fencers. This seems to be definitely a common play, especially for the Ukrainian, even the Kazakhstan and the Hungarians. They love this kind of tactic.
Can you just take our viewers through what the thought process might be? Is that a conversation that happens right before they decide to walk off? Even body language?
I think they just kind of, you know, like they're at that level. They go, you know what, I did what I could, and even the Estonian fencer will go, you know what, I got 3 touches. I still have a lot of energy, and I'm gonna come off, and it's kind of like a mutual agreement, right? Like they don't talk to each other, they don't look at their teammates. It just happens, and I think Ukraine know, you know what? I couldn't get any more points in this guy. I don't want to risk it, make the hole even bigger. I'm just gonna cut my losses and get my teammate out there.
Start the second here with 3-0 lead for Estonia. We've seen Ukraine involved in some very thrilling matches and their ability to trade streaks with other countries. We saw them when they were facing Kazakhstan in the semifinal. We were commenting that every time that we'd cut away from the Estonian match that we were focused on, every time the lead would be with a different country.
That's
and
right.
I think it wouldn't even be 1 or 2 point leads, it would be 4 or 5. And here we see the Ukraine getting on the board. How does that play into the hands? I mean, the mentality on the bench, that means that a 3-point, now 2-point deficit, especially early on, I think that's nothing.
I think in the early games, it doesn't affect too bad, right? Again, they're still playing. They got lots of room to play. They got lots of time to play. And that's what fencing is. These guys are playing. They're moving in and out. And, you know, Nikolai just kind of moved his wrist there, and Maxime capitalized with a nice wrist touch. And that's it. I mean, Nikolai doesn't feel too threatened. If it happened again and again, he probably wouldn't do it anymore. But again, as we can see, they're just playing right now.
A little bit different from the first set that we saw. Kovor's maintaining a little bit of difference, but not afraid to follow the Estonian over to that side of the piece, backing up a little bit. Not a whole lot of things going on, just more sort of finding out what's happening.
Exactly. You know, when you start to push your opponent to their side of the piece, it really limits your options as a defender and as an attacker. And that's why you usually see most the fencing will take place on one side or the other. A lot of fencing doesn't happen in the middle because there's too many variables. And so as you can see, like right now, Maxime's going to push, and he paid the price.
Real quick hands there coming from the Estonian, put him back up by 3. You get to this point, things that have worked previously in the tournament. I mean, you're going up against the very best of the best.
That's right. And our Estonian fencer, Nikola, he's by far one of the best. So it's unfortunate, but there was a huge upset on Saturday when he fenced, and he came in and he got knocked out right away. And that was it was a very shock to me. I thought he was going to be one of the contenders for sure, but just like in anything, any day, anything can happen. So.
That has been the key word of the weekend. For those of you who are just joining us, there are a fair share of upsets, especially in the singles competition, but team hasn't been void of that as well. France making an early exit and Switzerland not far thereafter. It's been a weekend that I don't think anybody could have really predicted here at the Richmond Oval in British Columbia, Canada. And here we see Estonia leading the Ukraine 5-1 here as they compete for a bronze medal. Reach in there and 6-1 now.
I think Maxime's going to back out soon and want to do some passivity. I think he can't quite figure out Nikola there. And
yeah, you're saying the Ukrainian fighter just turns, looks at his bench, and get a look at his facial expression. And said, "What do you want me to do?" Like, any tips? 6-1 through just over 5 minutes of play.
There you go.
6-2 now, and take any positives out of it here, and just try to get a little bit of the momentum back if you're the Ukraine. going for it has been pretty well all Estonia here so far. No double touches either.
Exactly. Wow, that was really quick on both ends. I'm actually surprised that Nicola didn't get the touch in there as well. It happened so fast. It's amazing.
We have had a couple of technical problems. If you've been with us for most of the day, 6-4 now for the Ukraine. Not a whole lot of complaints from the fencers this afternoon, but plenty of them yesterday.
Usually at the 10-second mark, that's usually when they decide whether they're going to make a play or not. Yeah, they're going to back up and.
Well, back up, and that concludes the second. Ukraine made it a lot closer than it could have been. 6-1 it was at one point for Estonia, and that could have gotten much more out of hand. Instead, they find themselves trailing by only 2 points. What was the key there in being able to turn things around? I think the point where the Ukrainian looked to his bench, it seemed kind of, I don't know what to do, but whatever it was that he got or whatever he decided to change himself, it ended up working.
I think Maxime just needed to prove himself that he is a contender on this team, and he did so, right? He didn't want to give up any more points, and he earned it. And so I just want to let the viewers know that if they take a look at the clock of the last 10 seconds, they actually go to hundredths of seconds now, whereas years before they didn't do that when there was a lot of complications with the referee when the score's being touched, and now they use hundredths of seconds for the last 10 seconds.
Yuri Salm now for the Estonians. Just talk a little bit about how strong of a performance he put through in the semifinals.
Wasn't that awesome to see? Yeah, he actually brought his team forward, and I think his second appearance there, he got seven touches, but of course, Emire also came back with 7 as well. But this guy likes to create openings and opportunities with that quick hand of his. And just look at him go. It's in and out. It's his pulse.
Those 2 feet jumping 2 feet in the air at the same time, that's not super rare, but at this level it's a little bit different to see. 6-5 now, the Ukraine right back in it. They trail only by 1.
That's right.
Yeah, with his movement, he's able to get back and forth so quick, and that expends a lot of energy. But if you're fit enough to do it, then I think that with how quickly you're able to move, you certainly have an advantage over your opponents.
And with that quick pulsing too, right? You don't quite know when he's actually going to commit to the attack. Right, it's in and out, just like his body, his hands in and out, his legs are in and out. And you have to be really quick to decide whether he's going to do something or not. And even if you try attacking, he's already out of there before, but his attacks are from too far away, and the Ukraine's picking him off.
6-6. Minor, it was 1-6, so the last 5 have gone in the favor of the Ukraine, and certainly all momentum here. A little bit of a surprise that Yuri Salm is the guy who's out there for Estonia while this is happening, but that also speaks to the strength of the Ukrainian team. I think visuals there, able to set up his move very well, and I think the Estonians kind of a little bit baffled by that one. Excellent execution by the Ukrainians.
It seems to me lately Salm has a very, very good attack, but his defense has been a little under par. Oh, and he hit the floor there, and shakes it off. It's unfortunate because he hit the floor. The Ukrainian fencer obviously made a touch, but he won't allow it. And in fencing, no light, no point.
That's something that I think newcomers to the sport might find very refreshing, is the amount of sportsmanship. Here we are, the winner gets a bronze medal, like an actual medal, and the person who got the point approaches the referee. I think a part of that could be also there aren't too many circuits for this sort of thing, so these are guys that you're going to be seeing down the road, and you're all in the same building plenty, and
that's right.
You talk to some of these guys plenty.
That's right, yeah. And even as myself, I've seen many of these referees at different level competitions, but these are the FIE referees, and they're the best of the best. And I find that when I'm in a fencing competition and a referee makes a call and I don't necessarily agree, I just go with it. That's what they're here to do, and I think these athletes have shown the utmost respect to our referees this weekend.
7-7 the score. Estonia and the Ukraine as they decide to tick away the last 40 seconds here as we move on to the 4th period. what have you seen so far? Pretty even, 7-7, very streaky, as some of the semifinals were, but no matter how we got here, it's basically the start of a brand new game after 3 periods.
You know, it's when you get to this level, they're all very talented athletes, and usually you see one team take off, but I think everyone's been fencing so much, and they're all fighting tired, fatigue, hunger, everything, that no one has, and this is too early in the game as well to give it your all. So I think we're going to see a very tight game with no one taking a commanding lead, just like we've seen in the past with the Ukraine and Estonian matches.
I'd say some of the fencers must train for these types of moments, like when you rely on muscle memory, doing exercises exactly the right way.
That's right.
As in not cheating defensively, not overexerting yourself offensively, but continuing to move around all that. I think that if you stay away from what got you here, then you're not going to be successful, and you won't even be able to medal here once you get to this point, because you're still going against the best of the very best.
Exactly. I mean, it's funny when you learn fencing, you learn the basics, and you continually do the basics. When I go to high performance training camps, I still do footwork drills. I still do extension drills. Right? You have to expand on that, but at the same time, you look at these guys, and they're just the masters of the basics, and everything else kind of comes into play, and they learn different, better moves, and they're just they're keeping it simple.
A little reset here after the confusion, and forfeit the final 2 minutes. No harm there done for either side. We will go to the 5th after scoreless 4th. Still 7-7 the score. Lots of the scoring done in bunches, that's for sure. The Ukrainians we alluded to earlier can certainly put the points up really quick. They have a couple of guys that once they get rolling, they get really confident, and there's almost no stopping them. Exactly. You look across there, I don't know if I was going up against the Ukrainians, there isn't one guy that I'd want to let get on a roll, because how do you play defense when someone hangs back and then at any moment can prepare basically 3 steps ahead for what you're going to throw at them?
That's right, because obviously the Ukrainians have such a strong defense, and you don't want to be the offensive one. Now we're going to see Salim come in, and he's been one to create some opportunities, but he didn't do so well last time, but maybe this time he's going to try to capitalize and create more of those opportunities.
Yuri Salm still jumping around the very end of this is Sunday.
Yeah.
Started on Friday, fight all day Friday, individuals all day yesterday, and here we are. It was 3:30 in the afternoon on Sunday. He's still going, so that really speaks to the importance of conditioning. And with that, the Estonians take the lead on a great reactionary move by Salm. Ukraine a little bit on the offensive here, a little different look from what we've seen in previous periods. And the official waves it off, and Salm immediately calls for the official, the box symbol, to go look, the universal language, because there's so many being spoken out here, for the official to go and consult the teleprompter, and official immediately comes right back out, automatically no.
See, Yuri feels that his hand was on him, and that's why he couldn't get the touch in, right? And so, but referee has there's 2 referees, and they call it off. Got to keep going. There's not a whole lot of fighting the ref you can do. Oh, very nice touch.
Something like that seemed a little bit routine, but if you can get it right in on the wrist, on the hands, and that's worth as many points. And
that's right.
You can get then that opens up a whole other thing, because then your opponent has to account for that.
That's right. That move's called a coupe, and you'll practice a coupe thousands and thousands and thousands of times, and the accuracy is very low, but it's such a nice light flick, and if you can get it, it feels really good.
9-8 now. Salm takes it back for the Estonians. Sort of feeling each other out, these spurts of activity, and Ukraine comes right back, 9-9. We can expect a close match here, almost midway through the 5th. It's been neck and neck. Excellent defense from both fighters here. You have the strong counter skills to be able to turn it around, and then for you to be able to come back in it. And Sam celebrates as that could have been anybody. And
I don't think it's going to be allowed. It looked like his head or mask came down and hit the Ukrainian fencer.
You can see as they get into close quarters.
Oh no, his knee came up. Oh.
So discussions with the officials, and Ukrainian can hardly believe it. His mask is still off. Nikishkin. Ten to 9. The point has been forfeited. Saw the yellow card, the red card there. Pardon me.
It's tough. You know what? You have to almost just accept it and move forward. If you take a grudge, you can't hold that on to. You got to keep moving forward.
10 to 9 the score in favor of Yuri Salm in Estonia.
Yuri Salm seems to be the fencer creating the most the points for the Estonian team.
For Estonian here, certainly this afternoon, he seems to have had plenty of energy, maybe enough for an entire team.
Yeah.
He's still going. We talked about the endurance and how well you train. Very best fencers from the best countries. You have to think, train for these types of moments exactly as we said. And 10 to 10 now on the double touch, the first double touch of the day.
That is not something we've seen very often at this level.
I'm sure anybody will tell you however they can get the points.
That's right.
It's not the prettiest, and those of you watching at home may have cringed a little bit, but 11-11 still.
Another double touch. Nice.
40 minutes remaining in the fifth period, and back-to-back double touches on having previously not had any. After the couple of streaks, there has hardly been any room between these two guys specifically, but then the rest of the fencers as well. What do you think is going to be the difference here moving forward? Like, how is one of them going to be able to take over?
That's a very good question. I think they're each sticking to their game plan pretty closely, and I don't think they're going to swerve from it. And just as we've seen, the Ukraine's taking that 1 point, and they're going to keep playing, but they're going to be a little bit more defensive or smarter in their fencing. And they're going to hope that they can just hold on to that lead, and then Estonia will have to do something.
14-12, the biggest lead, I believe, of the afternoon after the first couple points for the Ukraine. 14-12, 11 seconds remaining in the fifth. And they're content to just walk this one off. Excellent job there by Nikishin. Red card and all to be able to come out with his country on top by 2, vying for a bronze medal.
You know, when there's only 10 seconds left, there's really no time to set up an attack. You're just throwing it away if you try something. So, I mean, it's very common for us, for the fencers, just to throw it away and change it up.
So Ukraine leads by 2 entering the sixth. (14 to 12), and a little bit more feeling out between the opponents. And the next point could be pivotal, because that could mean a 3-point lead one way, or Estonia gets back within 1.
It's funny when you look at the way the Ukrainians fence, and then all of them fence very similarly. Very strong, very defensive, great point control. Then you look at the Estonians, and you have a fencer like Nikolai here, whose blade is constantly moving, but in a different way, more lateral. And then you have Slam here, who's moving in forwards and backwards. They fence much differently, and I wonder if that's a bit of an advantage, you know, because you have a bit of a variety in your fencers. But again, Ukrainians are very strong defensive, and they're going to stick to those guns.
So we'll see on the replay here, just as Estonia went in for the attack there at the Ukraine. You were mentioning so strong on defense, able to counter just about anything, and with 15 to 12 lead, 3 points is a little bit bigger against this team than some of the others that we've seen so far in the tournament.
That's right. a little bit of weight off of the Ukrainian shoulders now that they have a bit of a lead in the 6th period. We're much past the halfway point, so now they can kind of stick to their guns and hopefully it works out.
There go Estonia breaks that streak. Ukraine, one of the streakier teams we mentioned, but lead back down to 2. I think that was about 4 points consecutively, so Ukraine got a bit of a lead. Almost halfway through the 6th now, though. If you have anything left in the tank, I think this is when you're going to have to bring it out, because after today, you're leaving Canada.
That's right.
This is the very last thing that you have to do. So whatever strategy you've been holding back for the weekend, we're here on Sunday, 3:30 in the afternoon. If you're down by 2, you have to get going.
Yeah. I don't think these athletes know the meaning of holding back. They're pretty awesome all the time.
A little more distance than we've seen in recent periods, but they're not prepared to go into non-combat. Anything that you see from the opposition, I think you prepare to strike, but defense is your #1 priority here. But that's a huge point because Estonia becomes within 1. They're saying earlier Ukraine could have gone up by 3. Now that's a huge swing.
Exactly, and it was great that it was so. It was on the attack there, and Ukraine just missed it. I'm very surprised there, but
those are the types of things that you plan for.
Exactly.
2 and 3 moves in advance when you get up to this level. .20 seconds remaining in the 6th. Back and forth affair, and Ukraine ducked down, able to get there just before. Those are the types of moves that require a little bit of, dare I say, courage to make, where you're exposing yourself, dropping down. You go all in for that move because there's no defense that you're going to be able to play if you miss.
But the idea is that you have someone so big like Nikola, when he extends and you go down, he can't get his thumb down enough to get that tip on him. So
there you go. You're mentioning with the tenths of the seconds, 0.24 seconds remaining here in the 6th, and that's the point awarded to Estonia. So it'll be a 1-point deficit for the Estonians. Ukraine leads by 1 at the end of the 6th, going into the 7th now. Of course, the winner leaves here with the bronze medal, 4th place, empty-handed entirely here at the Richmond Oval. My name is Chris Brantlinger-Grant. I'm joined by Matt Clark. You are tuned into our coverage of the 2016 Peter Bacani Vancouver Fencing World Cup, brought to you by Via Sport. Matt, what do you think is going to happen here? Pretty close going into the 7th. 1 point in favor of the Ukrainians. We know they're good on defense, but it's hard to predict.
You know, it's really hard to predict. And I want to say that that Ukraine might go a little bit on the offensive because with Maxim's style, but he has too much on the line. He has a 1-point lead. He doesn't want to give it away. The fencing right in the middle there, where you don't want to be. But they are going to feel each other out a little bit before anything happens.
Mamo Alika for the Estonians. You can see him waving the épée around. Is it trying to find out more how Maxim operates his, or just trying to create something a little bit different at this point in the match?
A little bit of both, you know. Like, he really wants to see what he's going to do. And as you can see, he's not doing a whole lot, right? It's kind of there. And even though it's moving forwards and backwards, it's so quick. The Estonian fencer has a lot more movement, and I think Maxim might capitalize on some nice little wrist touches if the Estonian fencer keeps it moving in that direction.
Stoppage there mid-play.
Yeah, his sword was bent up, so he wanted to kind of just fix that there.
Not something we've seen too often, but not unprecedented. Cuts a little bit of the tension, but then mentally you have to get right back into that state where we're going hand-to-hand, and no points have been exchanged between these two so far.
We're almost at the passivity mark.
That's it for them, and the conclusion of the 7th. Still a 1-point match entering the 8th, man. We're getting down to the very end of it here between Ukraine and Estonia. How do you approach this if you're Sten Prince?
Oh. You know what? Very delicately, you have to apply pressure, but you also have to be able to get in and out. You don't want to be predictable, right? If you're constantly applying pressure, they're going to capitalize on that in the sense that they're going to get you on that forward step. So he has to be in and out, and he has to be very, very unpredictable, because if he just comes in at the wrong time, Ukraine's going to capitalize. Oh, and they're going to make him pay. So
very easy said rather than done. That
exactly.
You have to get us points. You also can't allow any. So
exactly.
Really interesting how he's going to approach this. Seems he's more inclined to go over to the Ukrainian side of the piece, but the Ukrainians can counter so quickly, especially when they're hemmed up in their own end and get their opponents moving forward. So in the 8th, I don't think you can afford to not score here. So Prince is going to have to take some chances, and I don't think he can believe that he didn't get contact at all. He looks over to his teammates, and he thought he had it.
He thought he had it, yeah. He always looks. I feel like the athletes look at their coach and they just can't believe, like, they're trying to defend themselves, like, I thought I had that. But at the same time, you didn't. The light didn't go off. Just accept it and go.
Two-point lead for Ukraine is the largest in recent history in the match. 2 minutes 30 remaining in the 8th. That was very close. I think Prince is lucky to have been able to have gotten as far back as he did.
Yeah. Ukraine had about 3 chances to get those arm touches. They just couldn't quite get it there.
There's a reluctancy from Estonia to actually engage because you can't give anything up, but that's playing right into Ukraine's hands as well, because if there's no engagement, then we move on to the 9th, and everybody's happy because that's now a 2-point deficit moving forward that they're going to have to take care of in fewer than 3 minutes. So we're not going to reach the 45-point mark. That is a huge point to get him within 1.
I can't believe that Ukraine pushed that. You know what I mean? Like, but he must have saw the opportunity and tried to take it, but it wasn't there, and now they shorten the gap by 1.
1:45 remaining in the 8th. Ukraine leads Estonia by 1, and a double touch preserves the lead at just 1 point. I think we just saw Estonia pressure the Ukraine down on our side of the piece here towards the left side. That's going to be difficult to maintain with how strong the Ukrainians are on defense, and also just by using the clock. What's the strategy there? 1:30, and you know that the 9th is going to be the final.
You know, I think if I was the Ukrainian, or if I was the Estonian, I would want the Ukrainian to believe that I needed to attack. Therefore, the Ukrainian would attack into my attack, and so I'd almost just do a lot of feints that were very believable. So when he tried to do the counterattack, I'd be ready with the repost. But then again, it's easier said than done.
Sten Prince for Estonia. Back and forth. This is where you practice your footwork for this back and forth. Nobody taking any time off, but both guys very cautious, knowing that the next point could very, very well mean the game for their country. Not only the game, but a medal as well.
I think we're about to hit the passivity mark there. Ukraine wants to go into it with a 1-point lead.
With 12 seconds left, they say enough is enough of that, and it'll all come down to this. Let's see how they approach this. What do you think the coach for Estonia has been telling his guy? He knows he's been in this situation for a couple minutes. It was apparent as the eighth period was going on that we would very likely be in this situation. What do you think is going through his mind? And if you're the coach, what message should you just try to get across with a big moment here coming up? 3 minutes, and that'll be it.
You know, if I was Nikola's coach, and Nikola's been in the situation before, right? I mean, he's a world-class fencer, and he's only down by 1, so the pressure's not on too much. He's got 3 minutes to play. Honestly, I would just tell him to go do his thing. Believe in yourself. You can do it, and there's really not that much of a hole to come out of. So don't worry about it, right? And just kind of enjoy yourself. I think at this level, we forget that we do this because it's fun, and when you have fun, you just fence way better.
Nikishin for Ukraine, trying to defend the 1-point lead. Obviously not to the very end. He's not trying to win 19-18 surely, but be a completely different game no matter who scores. And strategy goes out the window, or no matter how they're fencing right now, you have to have faith that Estonia is going to come and come and come, and we're going to have at least a couple of stoppages by the time this is all said and done as we go more towards the Ukrainian side of the piece.
Well, unfortunately, if they don't get a point in a few seconds here, we're going to go to the last minute with priority. And maybe that's what Nikola wants.
The Ukraine sensor went off. It's likely because the floor or malfunction, something like that. But the electrical
that was weird because he
system
didn't come,
acting up again here. Been a bit of a story here at the Richmond Oval, but nothing that's caused too many delays. And Estonia comes right out. And here we are, delay again.
Typically we should have had a priority call, but our passivity call, but we haven't yet. I'm sure the director will give it a few more seconds, and then we'll go to the final minute.
1 minute 40 remaining. On the Ukraine side of the piece, Estonia trails by 1, searching for a bronze medal.
Oh,
and he got it. So close.
He got the touch. He didn't get the medal.
So, yes, for clarification, he tied it up 19s. He got the touch.
He got the touch. Okay, now it's anyone's game.
Minute 30. This is why you choose these guys for the very last round, the 9th period. You want to have your best guys, the guys that you trust the most. I wonder here if they want to engage and see what happens during the final minutes of regulation, or if they'd rather go to a dramatic overtime here for all of our folks watching around the world.
That's usually what they do. They want to give the fade up to the clock or to the machine where they cast priority, and because if you try to dig a hole, then you have to get out with 30 seconds left. It's tough. Comes to I
think that surprised us, but certainly the guys down there. Ukraine takes the lead at 20-19. You can see here, that's the move you were alluding to earlier,
that's
that
right.
You practice a lot, and when it lands, it feels really good. Probably not better than right now. 40 seconds remaining. Ukraine leads by 1.
Oh, double touch.
Double touch.
They don't have to worry about the score clock. They got plenty of room to go, so it's just about timing now.
For Estonia, the goal is clear. 1 more point, and you can force it to an extra frame. Ukraine, defend, and if you must, get that double touch. 15 seconds. And that is absolutely huge. A 2-point lead now with 13 seconds. Pretty clear what the strategy from Estonia is going to be coming right at. Not many more options, so you can expect to see Ukraine back all the way up, and try and defend whatever happens on our left side here, facing from our Via Sport cameras at the outpost here.
Oh no.
That's not the way you planned it if you're Estonia. What was a 1-point lead with about 25 seconds left is now a 3-point lead, and seems as though the bronze medal is all but assured. The double touch there, 6.81 seconds to be very precise with you. Remaining here in the 9th, and looks as though Ukraine will capture a gold medal here in Richmond, British Columbia.
Oh, yeah. That just sealed the fate, I believe. 4 points in 4 seconds. Not likely.
Fully on display what we were talking about earlier, the Ukrainian defense system, which is so sound. So they shake hands in the middle. The clock runs down on the end of the 9th period. The Ukrainians come out and celebrate. They have earned a bronze medal here at the Peter Bakanyi Vancouver Fencing World Cup. Not leaving here empty-handed. Obviously not the prize that they wanted to go home with, but a valiant effort in the semifinals, very close back and forth affair, and then to be able to finish strong here against the Estonians is absolutely huge.
It's funny, you see them come off, and I know they're excited and feeling good, but you don't see the excitement that you'd almost expect to see from a bronze medalist winners, but they're probably so exhausted. But at least they're done for the day.
So Matt, we will have the final coming up here. Any thoughts on what we can expect to watch here on Via Sport later this afternoon?
Oh, you're going to see a really, really tight match between two countries that obviously deserve it. You know, and you know, we have the huge giants of the Hungarians, right? And then we even have the Kazakhstanians who will be moving their feet, and they also got size on their side. So this is actually going to be a really good match to watch.
Yeah, we alluded to it earlier during the Kazakhstan match. Everybody we're all getting lunch pretty much in the same place, and I don't think they have a guy who's under 6'6".
Yeah,
I'm pushing 6'4". You're all of 6'4", and it's something to behold for sure. From our perch up here, you know, you might not be able to recognize them. It's being so big, but those Kazakhstanis certainly are. So as we see the Ukrainians capture the bronze medal, we can look forward to the gold medal match, which will feature Hungary and Kazakhstan. I'm Chris Brentlinger-Grant. You'll be joined by Matt. We'll come back after this.